Hello, and welcome back to Sera English. I am so happy you are here with me today. Whether you are listening while cooking, walking, commuting, or just relaxing at home, I want you to know that every minute you spend listening to English is making you better. So take a deep breath, relax, and let us enjoy today's episode together. Today I have a very special story for you. It is a story about a woman named Leila, a small bakery, a mysterious old letter, and the kind of courage that most of us forget we have inside us. The story is called The Bakery at the End of the Street. But before we begin, I want to teach you a word. The word is perseverance. Perseverance. Say it with me, perseverance. Perseverance means continuing to do something even when it is very difficult, even when you feel like giving up, even when everyone around you says it is impossible. We will see a lot of perseverance in today's story, so keep that word in your heart as we begin. Leila was 34 years old, and she had never done anything that surprised anyone. She woke up every morning at 6:15. She made tea, always with 2 spoons of sugar and a small piece of ginger. She took the number 7 bus to the office where she worked as an administrative assistant for a company that made packaging materials. She typed emails. She filed papers. She said, "Good morning and have a nice evening, and let me check that for you." Then she came home, made dinner, watched something on her phone, and went to sleep. It was not a bad life, but it was not a full life either. She lived in a small apartment in a city called Mirabad. The apartment had yellow walls that she had always meant to repaint but never did. There was one window in the kitchen that looked out onto a narrow street. And at the end of that street, there was a bakery. The bakery was called Noor's. It had a green door, and every morning when Leila passed it, the smell of fresh bread would drift out and wrap itself around her like a warm blanket. Sometimes she stopped. Sometimes she closed her eyes for just a moment and breathed in that smell, sesame and cardamom and something sweet she could never quite identify. Then she would open her eyes, adjust her bag on her shoulder, and keep walking to the bus stop. She had a dream. She had always had it, since she was a young girl watching her grandmother in the kitchen. Leila wanted to open her own bakery, but she had never told anyone. Not her mother, not her best friend Dina, not even herself, not really, not in a way that felt serious, not in a way that felt possible. Dreams for Leila were things that other people had the courage to chase. She was not that kind of person, or so she believed. Now, I want to pause here and teach you a beautiful idiom. The idiom is to chase a dream. To chase a dream means to actively pursue something you want very much, to work hard toward a goal that is very important to you. For example, she spent 10 years chasing her dream of becoming a doctor. Or, he quit his job to chase his dream of writing a novel. To chase a dream. Remember this phrase, because Leila's story is entirely about whether she will finally chase hers. One evening in October, Leila came home to find a letter under her door. This was strange. Nobody sent her letters. Everything was digital, emails, messages, notifications. A physical letter, a real paper envelope with her name written in ink, was something from another time. She picked it up. The envelope was old, the paper slightly yellow at the edges. Her name, Leila Hassan, was written in careful, beautiful handwriting. There was no return address. She made her tea. She sat down at her small kitchen table by the yellow wall, and she opened the letter. Inside was a single page. The handwriting was the same, careful, deliberate, like someone who had thought very hard about every word before writing it. It said this: Dear Leila, I do not know if you remember me. My name is Samira Noor. I owned the bakery at the end of your street for 31 years. I am writing this letter because I am old now and I am leaving Mirabad to live with my daughter in another city. I have watched you from my window for many years. I have seen you stop every morning outside my door. I have seen the way you look at my bakery, not like a customer looking at bread, but like someone looking at a life they wish they were living. I could be wrong, but I do not think I am. I am leaving the keys to the bakery with my neighbor, Mrs. Ferris, in apartment 4. The rent is paid for 6 months. The oven still works perfectly. The recipes are in a blue notebook on the second shelf. I am not giving you this because I feel sorry for you. I am giving you this because I think you are someone who has been waiting for permission from the world to begin. Consider this your permission. With warmth, Samira Noor. Leila read the letter 3 times. Then she put it down on the table and stared at the yellow wall for a very long time. Now here is a vocabulary word I want you to learn. The word is deliberate. Deliberate. It means done on purpose, carefully thought out, intentional. When I say the handwriting was deliberate, I mean each letter was written with care and intention. Nothing was accidental. You can use this word in many ways. She made a deliberate choice to leave her job. He spoke in a slow, deliberate way so everyone could understand. Deliberate. Write it down if you can. That night, Leila did not sleep. She lay in her bed and thought about the letter. She thought about Samira Noor, this woman she had never spoken to, who had watched her from a window for years and somehow understood something about her that her own family did not. She thought about the green door and the smell of cardamom and sesame. She thought about her grandmother's kitchen, the flour on the wooden board, the soft weight of dough in her small hands, the way her grandmother would hum while she worked, like the baking itself was a kind of music. And she thought about fear, because there was fear, of course, a great deal of it. She had no experience running a business. She had no money saved, not much, anyway, not enough. She did not know suppliers or pricing or permits. She did not know how to manage stock or deal with difficult customers or handle a busy Saturday morning rush. She was an administrative assistant who typed emails about packaging materials. What did she know about running a bakery? But then, at around 2 in the morning, a different thought came to her. What did Samira Noor know when she first began? The next morning, instead of going to the bus stop, Leila went to apartment 4. She knocked on the door. An elderly woman with bright eyes and a pink cardigan opened it. This was Mrs. Ferris. I am Leila, Leila said. From upstairs. I received a letter from. I know who you are, said Mrs. Ferris, smiling. She disappeared for a moment and came back holding a small set of keys on a plain metal ring. She said you would come. She was not sure which morning, but she was sure you would come. Leila took the keys. Her hand was shaking slightly. Was she a good baker? Leila asked, though she already knew the answer. The best in the city, Mrs. Ferris said simply. But more than that, she was brave. She opened that bakery when she was your age, you know. People told her it would fail. Her own husband told her it would fail. She opened it anyway. She paused. The bread was extraordinary. Leila thanked her and walked down the street. She stood in front of the green door. She put the key in the lock. It turned easily, like it had been waiting for her. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Let me teach you another idiom here. The idiom is to take the plunge. To take the plunge means to decide to do something difficult or scary after a period of hesitation. When you take the plunge, you stop waiting and you start doing. For example, after thinking about it for 2 years, she finally took the plunge and enrolled in university. Or, he took the plunge and asked her to marry him. Leila, when she put that key in the door, was taking the plunge. Remember this one, to take the plunge. The inside of Noor's bakery smelled like years of warmth. The walls were white, slightly worn. There was a long wooden counter with a glass front, empty now, but you could imagine it full of bread and pastries and small cakes. Behind the counter was the oven, large and old and solid, like something that had been there forever and intended to stay. On the wall above it were small photographs, Samira at different ages, always smiling, always flour on her apron or her hands. And on the second shelf, exactly where the letter said it would be, was a blue notebook. Leila took it down carefully. She opened it. The pages were covered in that same deliberate handwriting, recipes written out in full, with notes in the margins. Things like, more cardamom in winter, people need the warmth. Or, the sesame must be toasted, never raw. Trust me on this. Or, do not rush the second rise. Bread cannot be hurried. Neither can people. Leila sat down on the floor right there, with her back against the counter, and she read the entire notebook from the first page to the last. It took her 2 hours. When she finished, she had flour dust on her jacket from the shelf and tears she had not expected on her face. She wiped them away. She stood up, and she made a decision. Now here is a vocabulary word. Commitment. Commitment. When you commit to something, you make a firm decision to do it and you follow through, even when it gets hard. Commitment is different from interest. You might be interested in learning guitar. You watch some videos, you try it once or twice. But commitment means you practice every day, even when your fingers hurt, even when you are tired, even when progress feels slow. Commitment is what turns dreams into real things. Commitment. Leila did not quit her job immediately. She was not reckless. And here is another good vocabulary word for you. Reckless. Reckless means doing something without thinking about the risks or consequences, being carelessly bold. Leila was not reckless. She was brave, but she was also thoughtful. She made a plan. She would use the 6 months of free rent to learn. She would come to the bakery every evening after work and on weekends. She would practice the recipes in Samira's blue notebook. She would learn everything she needed to learn about permits, about suppliers, about pricing before she opened. She gave herself a deadline, 6 months. If, at the end of 6 months, she was not ready, she would close the door and walk away knowing she had tried. But she intended to be ready. The first week was humbling. Humbling. This means an experience that makes you feel less proud or confident, usually because you realize how much you do not know. The bread she made was too dense. The sesame rolls came out wrong. The bottoms burned while the tops were pale. The cardamom cake fell completely in the middle and tasted like sadness. She threw it away and started again. But she kept coming back every evening. She read the notebook. She watched videos. She called her grandmother, who was still alive and sharp and delighted to talk about baking at 10 in the evening. Her grandmother told her things no notebook could contain, The feel of dough when it is ready, how to trust your hands, how to know by smell when something is done, how to listen to an oven like it is talking to you. Baking, her grandmother said, is a conversation between you and the ingredients, between you and the fire. You learn to listen. Leila learned to listen. By the second month, the bread was good. By the third month, it was very good. She told Dina about the bakery in the third month over coffee one Sunday afternoon. She had been afraid to tell anyone, afraid they would say it was foolish, impractical, too risky, afraid they would look at her the way she had always looked at herself, as someone who was not the kind of person who did bold things. Dina put down her coffee cup and stared at her. "You have been doing this for 3 months," Dina said slowly. "And you did not tell me?" "I was not sure it would work, Leila." Dina shook her head. "You are unbelievable." But she was smiling. "Can I come see it?" They went that afternoon. Dina walked in, looked around, picked up a piece of the sesame bread Leila had made that morning, and took a bite. She was quiet for a moment. "Leila," she said, "this is incredible." And something shifted inside Leila when she heard that. Not because she needed someone else's approval. She had learned, slowly, that the opinion that mattered most was her own. But because sometimes hearing someone you love say, "This is real, this is good, this counts," that gives you a kind of strength. It reminds you that you are not imagining things. Let me give you an idiom here that I love very much. The idiom is every cloud has a silver lining. Every cloud has a silver lining means that even in difficult or bad situations, there is always something positive, something good to be found. The clouds in Leila's story were the years she spent not following her dream, the time she felt like she was living someone else's life. But the silver lining? Those years gave her patience. They gave her steadiness. They gave her the ability to make a plan and stick to it instead of rushing in without thinking. Every cloud has a silver lining. In the 5th month, something unexpected happened. Leila's company announced that it was downsizing. This means making a company smaller by reducing the number of employees, and her position was one of the ones being eliminated. She would have her job for 6 more weeks, and then it was over. 6 weeks earlier, this news would have devastated her. It would have felt like the ground disappearing beneath her feet. But now she sat in the meeting room, listened to her manager explain the situation with an apologetic face, and felt something she did not expect: relief. She thanked her manager. She gathered her things. She walked out into the afternoon sunlight. And she went straight to the bakery. She worked until midnight that night. She made bread. She worked on the display for the counter. She updated her little notebook of calculations, costs, prices, projected sales. She had enough saved, combined with what she would receive from her company when she left, to cover expenses for almost 8 months beyond the free rent period. It would be tight, but it was possible. Possible. What a beautiful word. Something being possible does not mean it is guaranteed. It means it is within reach if you are willing to work for it. She was willing. Let me teach you one more vocabulary word before we continue. Resourceful. Resourceful means being good at finding ways to solve problems, especially when you have limited resources. A resourceful person does not wait for perfect conditions. They work with what they have and find creative solutions. Leila was becoming more and more resourceful with every passing week. Write it down, resourceful. On the 1st of April, 6 months after she had found that letter under her door, Leila opened the green door of Noor's bakery at 7 in the morning. She had repainted the sign above the door. It still said Noor's, but underneath in smaller letters she had added, "In honor of Samira." The smell of fresh bread drifted out into the street. Sesame rolls, cardamom cake, a simple white loaf with a crisp golden crust. She had made everything from the blue notebook and a few new things of her own. Recipes she had developed over the months, things her grandmother had taught her, combinations she had discovered by accident and fallen in love with. Mrs. Ferris was the first customer. She came in at 7:03, still in her pink cardigan, and she ordered a sesame roll and a piece of cardamom cake. She ate them both standing at the counter, and when she finished, she pressed Leila's hand and said, "Samira would be very happy." By noon, Leila had sold out of almost everything. She stood in the empty bakery, the counter bare, flowers still on her hands and her apron, exhausted in a way she had never felt before. A deep, full, satisfied exhaustion, the kind that comes when you have worked hard at something that matters. And she looked around at the white walls and the old oven and the photographs of Samira. And she laughed. She laughed out loud, alone, in a bakery that was now hers, and it was the most wonderful sound she had ever heard herself make. She wrote a letter that evening. She had gotten Samira's new address from Mrs. Ferris. She sat down at her kitchen table, still with the yellow walls she had always meant to repaint but now somehow loved, and she wrote, "Dear Samira, I do not have the right words to thank you, so I will just tell you what happened. I opened today. I sold out by noon. Your sesame rolls were gone in an hour. I made a small change to your cardamom cake. I added orange zest. I hope you do not mind. Mrs. Ferris said she approves. I kept your name on the sign. I hope that is all right. I learned something this year that I think you already knew, that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to keep going even when the fear is very loud. I was afraid every single day. I still am. But the bread keeps coming out right, and the door keeps opening, and people keep coming in. I think that is enough for now. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the keys. With all my gratitude, Leila." She folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and wrote the address in her own handwriting, careful, deliberate, like someone who meant every word. Now, before I close today's episode, I want to share 3 final things with you. First, a vocabulary word, gratitude. Gratitude means the feeling of being thankful, of appreciating what someone has done for you, or what life has given you. Leila's letter was full of gratitude, not just politeness, but real, deep thankfulness. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions a person can cultivate. To cultivate something means to develop it carefully, to nurture it over time. Cultivate gratitude in your own life. It changes how you see everything. Second, an idiom, to find your footing. To find your footing means to become more comfortable and confident in a new situation. When you start something new, a job, a relationship, a skill, a new city, there is always a period where you feel unsteady, unsure, like you might trip. But gradually you find your footing. You learn where to step. You become more confident. Leila, over those 6 months in the bakery, found her footing. And you, with your English, you are finding your footing too. Every episode you listen to, every new word you learn, every sentence you understand a little better, that is you finding your footing. Third, and most important, the moral of today's story. Leila's story teaches us something very human and very true, that we often wait for someone to give us permission to become who we already are. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, the perfect sign that it is safe to try. But the perfect moment rarely comes. What comes instead are small, ordinary moments: a letter under a door, a key on a plain metal ring, a green door at the end of a street, and it is in those moments that we must decide who we are going to be. Nobody can give you your life. Not a letter, not a mentor, not a kind neighbor with a pink cardigan. What a letter can do, what a kind word, a piece of advice, a moment of unexpected generosity can do, is remind you that the life you want is not as far away as it seems. The bakery was always there. The door was always at the end of the street. The only thing missing was Leila, the Leila who believed she was allowed to walk through it. Do not wait for permission to walk through your door. That is our story for today. The bakery at the end of the street. Let's do a quick review of everything we learned together. Our word of the episode was perseverance, continuing even when things are difficult. We learned deliberate, done with care and intention. We learned commitment, a firm decision to follow through on something. We learned reckless, careless, without thinking of consequences. We learned humbling, an experience that shows you how much you still have to learn. We learned resourceful, good at solving problems with limited resources. And we learned gratitude, the feeling of deep thankfulness. Our idioms today were to chase a dream, to take the plunge, every cloud has a silver lining, and to find your footing. Say them one more time with me. To chase a dream, to take the plunge, every cloud has a silver lining, to find your footing. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this story gave you something, a new word, a new phrase, or maybe just a small reminder that the things you want are not as impossible as they sometimes feel. Keep listening. Keep learning. Keep showing up for yourself, the way Leila showed up for herself, one morning, one step, one small brave decision at a time. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, take care of yourself, speak a little English every day, and never stop chasing what matters to you. This is Sera English. Goodbye for now.